A pleasant good morning, everybody. I was glad to see everyone at the tour yesterday, taking a look at the GR knock. Thought that was great. I'd like to thank Light River for our breakfast this morning. Would you join me in a round of applause for Light River? We do appreciate folks who help us in that way. Yesterday's keynote was the national perspective. This morning we've got the state perspective. And we're very delighted to have Lori Sorenson here, who's our Chief Operating Officer of Central Management Services for University of Illinois, and in fact is the organization that runs the Illinois, the ICN, the Illinois Century Network, which covers 8,000 schools, libraries, healthcare providers, museums, municipalities, state agencies, and the state police in every day with high-speed access to video, data, and audio communications. Lori is an example of what we would expect to see happening for the use of community anchors across the country, and is happening already right here very close to where we are in the state of Illinois. So we're very, very privileged this morning to have Lori Sorenson. Lori.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to come join you. This is probably the most exposure I've had with the National Lambda Rail, so it's been very educational to me. I especially enjoyed the tour last night. We run, I guess I would call it a 24/7 by 365 knock, but after seeing your operations, very impressive. I'm actually glad that our network engineers and folks weren't here. Otherwise, I would have a wish list going on and on and on for the tools and things they would like. So you're to be commended, a very nice operation. Get that password back. This morning, what I thought I would cover is give you a little bit background about the Illinois Century Network, share with you some of the challenges that we are dealing with, and then also cover broadband stimulus opportunities from a state perspective within Illinois, talk to you about what we've done in round one, round two on a statewide basis, and then share just some other, I think, interesting initiatives that Illinois is doing to further regional networks and broadband development within the state. As Glenn mentioned, the ICN serves 8,000 entities, and that includes K-12, higher education, libraries, museums, healthcare, government, not-for-profits, any organization. In fact, our enabling legislation allows us to serve anyone, public or private. As an operational policy for the last 10 years, we have only served government and nonprofit, and that mostly has to do with all of our connections, our backbone connections, are leased lines from private carriers, and our contracts that we've entered into are really based on getting educational and government pricing. So we've placed that limitation, but we have the option to grow and to serve, public and private as we see as the best fit. Our operating budget has stayed pretty steady around $30 million, $32 million, and more than half of that comes from user fees. About 41% comes from a state appropriation and about 3% from E-rate funds. When ICN was actually created in 1999, and it was predominantly 100% funded through state appropriations. So our overall budget has stayed the same, our usage has grown, and our state appropriation has declined. But that's to be expected. Our network, we consider our network a user-driven network, and while it's operated and managed under the Illinois Department of Central Management Services, the legislation does establish a policy committee that includes representation from all of our constituent groups. And those folks are involved in, again, setting the overall direction for the network kind of administrative policies. When we talk about user fees and funding decisions and commitments. That's where our policy committee is involved. But then we also have an advanced engineering task force, and this includes the network engineers and technicians from our constituent groups. We've been able to bring in the universities, and we've bring in Joe Mambretti from the more national advanced research networks. We have folks, technology directors from the K-12 schools, and even from our local libraries. And these folks meet and work with our network engineers on a quarterly basis and help provide the direction as our network engineers make the decisions in rolling out the operations for the for the network, making sure that we are operating the network in a way that's meeting their needs, it's staying open, it's going to support their applications, dealing with security while not hindering the transport of any of their critical applications. Our backbone is made up of all lease lines. They're point-to-point circuits that we lease from a variety of carriers. At the core is an OC48, and then we have OC12 out to the rest of the state. We have 15 POP sites, and those are located predominantly within our universities or at a state facility. We do have provide internet egress, commodity internet egress for our constituents, and we do get that from 4 different providers at 3 different locations on the network. We have private peering at Equinix in Chicago, and we do connect to Internet 2. We are a SEGP, a sponsored educational group provider. We actually within Chicago, we ride the iWire network from our POP site over to Starlight, and that's where we get access to Internet 2. And we actually have the ability to send transport over National Lambda Rail for any of our constituents that would need that. Some of the trends that we've been seeing over the years is, first of all, utilization continues to grow. You all know that. It's kind of been at a rate of about 8% per month. We've also seen a move from last mile connections from being T1s to Ethernet based. So again, we manage the network I showed you, that was the core backbone, and that just went from POP to POP. And then at each POP site is where we have the last mile connections. Again, for the most part, lease, point-to-point circuits or lease lines from a variety of carriers. When the network started back in 2000, all of our K-12 and libraries were connected with T1s, colleges and universities probably with a DS3. Today we're seeing a big move in the K-12 community from T1s on over to Ethernet-based services. We're also seeing a change from direct connections to where our customers are coming in more with wide area networks, municipal networks, little regional networks. And again, I think that's coming from some of these new Ethernet-based services that the cable companies and the carriers and municipal broadband networks are developing and creating kind of their own little wide area network and then aggregating and bringing to us one single connection. Another change we've seen, and this is something that I think you all would say is bandwidth isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. But when we started this in again 99 and 2000, and again dealing with thousands of libraries in K-12, at that time broadband and network was really they didn't really know what they were going to do with it. It was kind of a little extra, it was fun, it was a luxury. And over that time, the change has come. We actually did a survey back about 3-4 years ago and was saying, how do you do the network? How critical is it to your operations? And the answer that came back is, it's a utility. It's like water. It's like power. We can't function. We can't operate. We can't open our doors, without it. So that's a big change in where, again, think about small libraries, small schools, where they've come over the last, 10 years or so.